245, and in this really simple tutorial we are going to just learn how to block out a basic walk cycle using the SimpleBot. Now this is a supremely rudimentary walk cycle. This walk cycle is not going to express any particular feeling. It's just going to be your standard mechanics, and we're not even worried about the front view of the walk cycle. We're just focusing on strictly the basic mechanics. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and create a new scene. And to begin, the first thing that you should always do when starting a new project in Maya is to create a new project window. So I'm going to go over here to File. I'm going to go to Project Window. I'm going to create New, and I'm going to name this project Basic Walk. And I'm going to set it to my desktop. Now you could put it anywhere you want. I'm putting it on the desktop just for expediency and ease of finding. Click Accept, and now I'm going to minimize Maya. And I can see that I have my basic walk directory with all my basic folders in it. And over here, I have the walk block out, which is what I put together before recording this tutorial. And I've got my SimpleBot, which is the rig I'm going to be using. Now this is called SimpleBot 3 because I made some modifications, got rid of some mental ray nodes that were attached to the original. So every time I update it, I add a little number, but this is basically the same SimpleBot that you can find on the internet. I'm going to go ahead and drag SimpleBot into the Scenes folder so Maya knows where to find it. And then I'm going to go back into Maya, and I'm going to reference my SimpleBot into my scene. Now to create a reference, you just scroll down to the reference editor and you click on this little button in the far left side. It looks like a little blue diamond with a plus sign, and that allows you to create a reference. Now because we created the project just now, it's automatically set to our basic walk. I'm going to click on SimpleBot 3 and I'm going to click reference. And so now SimpleBot is in our scene. Now there's a lot of strengths in creating a reference. Referencing a model into the scene allows the scene in which you animate to be a lot less heavy, a lot less expensive as far as how big the file is. And it also allows you to swap the rig out if something goes wrong. If the rig breaks, you can fix the rig and then swap it out with the adjusted rig. So references are wonderful. Alright, so now that we've got our SimpleBot referenced into our scene, I'm going to go ahead and click Show None. And the reason is because when I go Show All, you see a lot of extra clutter. Like you can see the pole vector constraints, like little locators pointing to the pole vector controls. You can see these joints that run through the leg and through the head. I don't want to keyframe, animate, or select any of that. So I'm going to go Show None. And then I'm going to go Show NURBS Curves and Show Polygons. Now, if you're working on a PC, I don't know what the hotkeys are, but on a Mac, if you want to quickly show the NURB curves or the polygons, all you have to do is click Option 1 or Option 2. So if I click Option 1, that shows my NURB curves, which are my controllers for the rig. And if I click Option 2, I can see the polygon body of the SimpleBot. Alright, so a few more things that I want to do for my scene is I'm going to go ahead and show my channel box. Right now by default the attribute editor is showing, but oops, wrong button. Control A will show us the channel box. This is going to be really helpful for when we are animating certain controllers. We can zero controllers back out to their well, T-pose, not really a T-pose without arms, but the default pose. So it's very helpful to have our channel box showing. Next, I'm going to go make sure that my timeline is set up correctly. Let's go down here and click on this icon for our preferences, our timeline preferences. It's an orange guy running from a gear. Oh, that's what it looks like to me. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and that opens up our time slider preferences. And I already have this set to 24 frames per second, but if you are just opening up Maya New, you might find that it has play every frame as the default. Play every frame is great for like caching dynamics, but it's not awesome for animating. When we animate, we want to run it at 24 frames per second, so go ahead and change that to 24 frames. Next, I'm going to go up to animation, and under animation, I'm going to go down these different sections until I find tangents, which have to do with our animation curves that we're going to put together in the graph editor. And we're going to change the default out tangent from auto to stepped. Now we talked about this in a previous lecture, but stepped keys take away the interpolation between the different keys, so that instead of Maya sort of auto-tweening or splining those tangents, it's just going to be stepped keys. It's going to have no interpolation. It's just going to be as though you were paper flipping. So I like to start out a scene with stepped keys, and then I like to spline them or maybe use clamped curves. It's really up to your preference. And then I go in and I polish the results. So I've got my animation set to stepped, time slider set to 24. I'm going to click save. Now a few more things that I want to do to prepare. One is I want to have the animation editors that I'm going to be using the most for this animation. Typically the ones that I like to have at hand, I like to go to Windows, Animation Editor, and click on the graph editor. Graph editor is essential. I like to grab the graph editor and hover it so I see a blue line right above my timeline, and I drop it. And so now my graph editor has been docked to my workspace. I can double click the graph editor to collapse it, so I can kind of summon it or close it. That's just a lot easier to me than minimizing it. The other one that I sometimes like to use, which I don't think I'll be using for this particular tutorial, but the other one I really love to have on hand is my dope sheet, which is essentially like the X sheet or Maya's version of the exposure sheet from traditional animation or Toon Boom. So I'm going to take the dope sheet and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just sort of, actually let's go ahead and open the graph editor to do this. I'm going to grab the dope sheet and I'm just going to drop it there. So now I can toggle between the two. Now there are buttons over here to the right to quickly jump into like the tracks editor or the dope sheet, but I like this setup a little bit better. So now that I've got my graph editor and my dope sheet if I need it, I've got my timeline set up to 24 frames per second, and I've gone ahead and made my keys stepped so that I'm not worried about interpolation, I'm just focusing on poses. And lastly, making sure to turn off everything except the polygons and NURBS. I'm just about ready to begin. Now, when you are working on a more advanced rig, a lot of the advanced rigs that you're going to pull from the internet come with something called a picker, a rig picker, and what that is something that you can load into the preferences, and when you activate it, it's like a remote control for your rig. So you're readily able to click on any control without hunting for it. Now, SimpleBot doesn't come with a picker, at least none that I've ever found. And the reason for that is it's a very simple rig. There's all of maybe 9 controllers attached to his main rig, and there are of course facial controllers, which if you're interested in getting a hold of those, I'm going to go ahead and go into my split screen here. So we're in perspective mode, but if I go to my far left and I click on this split screen, I'm able to see the perspective view and the front view as the default camera angles. I'm going to go to my front panel, go to panels up here. Under perspective, you'll see that SimpleBot has his own face cam. So if I click this scene here and I press F to put things into focus, you'll see these controllers actually live just north of SimpleBot, way up high so they're not in the way. And they've created a little camera that allows you to quickly access these facial controls without, getting in the way of your character. So this is a very common practice as opposed to having the facial controls off to the right or someplace where they become cumbersome. So if you want to, you can go in and activate these and you're able to control things like SimpleBot blinking, but that's not really what I want to focus on today. So I'm going to go back into my perspective view. Let's go back to discussing the picker. SimpleBot doesn't come with a picker, but I want to be able to select all of his main controls when I'm setting these poses, because sometimes there are going to be aspects of SimpleBot that I don't key necessarily in the process, and I like to have them anchored on these big poses. So being able to select all of the controllers to key at the same time is going to be really helpful. So I'm going to go over here to SimpleBot. So you see there's this SimpleBot shelf. You don't have this shelf. I'm just kind of showing you what I plan on making. I'm going to go ahead and delete this button and delete this shelf. I can click this little gear to delete shelf. Okay, so in your version of Maya, depending on what plugins you have, you're just going to have a series of tabs up here for different aspects in Maya, like polygon modeling. Here are a bunch of tools for modeling, sculpting, rigging, etc. I'm going to go to Substance, which is the one I have to my far right, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new panel. So I'm going to go over here and say new shelf. That's what I should have said, not panel, but shelf. So I'm going to say new shelf, and I'm going to call it simple bot and press OK. So now I have this simple bot shelf. I don't know why that button keeps coming back. Okay, so simple bot shelf, when you create it, goodness, delete. When you create the simple bot shelf, it should be empty. I'm not sure what the glitch is that makes my button come back. But when you create this, it should be empty. And what I want to do now is I want to collect all of the controllers I'm going to be using for this block out. I want to go ahead and choose the main controller. So that's one. I'm going to grab both of the knee controllers that control which way SimpleBot's knees are going to move via pole vector constraint. So now I've got 3 controllers selected. 4 and 5 being the feet, and 6 and 7 being these diamonds on the back of the feet. These are actually controllers that will allow you to manipulate foot roll and toe wiggles and what have you. So in total, I want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 controllers selected, and all I have to do is select them, hold down Shift, and keep clicking until I have all 7 selected. I'm not really worried about the eyes, and I'm not worried about the global controller at this stage. I just want to worry about him. So, yeah, I don't want to. Do I want to? You know what? I'm being absolutely indecisive, but I think, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and throw in the global controller for giggles. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 controllers selected. And now that I have these 8 controllers selected, I'm going to go over here to create, and I'm going to go down to sets, quick select set. So again, that's under create, sets, quick select sets. And what this does is it kind of creates a button with everything that I have clicked on. So I'm going to say all for, well, it's basically all of SimpleBot's controllers, and add to shelf. And that will add it to the shelf that we have selected. So now when I click off and click this, it grabs all of those controllers. Okay, so now we really are ready to get started. Now, if you are taking this class with me, then you know that there is a graphic that has been provided for you on the Dropbox. And in fact, if I go over here, I can see a preview of this graphic. This is from Richard Williams' book, Animator Survival Kit. And even though it's for 2D animation, it's 100% applicable to what we're doing in 3D. So this is basically showing us the basic poses: contact down, passing up, contact down, passing up. I'm repeating it because I want it to stick in your brain. But contact down and passing and up are these key poses that are going to exist in every walk. They may not always look this way, like the down pose might be manipulated into an up and you get a double step in your walk to kind of get that spring in your step. They may manipulate these poses, but generally speaking, when you are analyzing your own walk, you want to find what's essentially the close approximation to these basic poses, okay, these key poses. So the contact is where the feet are both on the ground, and it's typically the most extreme, so the most wide that the feet are. The down, because a walk is a controlled fall, so the down is when the character kind of falls onto that foot that's going to take the most of the weight on this particular stride. And then the passing position is generally when one foot passes the other. And then the up position is where your character is typically at their highest. Now, many of you would probably think, well, this is where the leg is most perpendicular to the ground and most rigid. This should probably be the up pose, but not so. Generally speaking, human beings, we like to roll off the ball of our foot, and so that's what leads us to be, gaining a little extra height. Again, these rules can change depending on the type of walk that you're doing, and it could also change if your character is wearing high heels, for instance, or if they're constrained by some article of clothing. So this is just these are just fundamental concepts. They're not like set in stone, but they are kind of universal in their existence. So, sorry, I'm over-explaining. Let's go back to the walk. So, one thing that I recommend when you're animating a walk is being able to differentiate between your two legs. So this is a This is something I do temporarily while I'm blocking out the walk. One thing I like to do, and apologies in advance if you hear any funny slurping noise, my dog is drinking in the background from her water dish. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on option 1 to hide my NURBS curves. And one of the things I like to do before I start walks so that I don't get my legs mixed up is I like to reverse the normals on one of the legs. So I'm going to hold down my spacebar, which activates my hotbox, and I'm going to go into Mesh Display, and I'm going to click Reverse. So typically when you reverse normals in like a different software package like Substance Painter, for instance, they would just be transparent. But in Maya, when you flip it, it turns it black, which is kind of cool for this particular situation. Now I kind of have a shaded back leg. If I were animated this in 2D, I'd always want to shade one of my legs. So in this instance, it's kind of like pseudo shading. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to option 1 to bring back my NURBS curves, and I am ready to start animating. So let's go ahead and look at our 4 viewports, which if you just tap spacebar is generally what'll pop up, or you can just go to the second button on the far left, and I'm going to go to my side view. Now, I only hid everything in my perspective view when I was setting up my scene. If I want to do that in any of these other cameras, I'm going to have to do it individually. So I'm going to work in my side view. I'm going to go show none, and then I'm going to go ahead and use option 1 and option 3, or I'm sorry, not 3, option 2, to show my polygons and to show my NURB curves, because I'm looking at this from the side view, kind of like the Richard Williams graphic. All right, so I'm going to choose one of these legs to be forward, so I'll just pick one. And I'm going to go ahead and move this way because we're thinking of the contact pose, right? And I'm going to go ahead and move this one the opposite way. I'm just going to get a general feel. Now, obviously our character feels a little funny. He's up off the ground. Let's go ahead and activate this. So if we click on the little diamond that we selected when we created our all button, we have all of these extra channels that we can animate that have been driver-driven programmed into this rig. And one of them is the foot roll. And if I click on the foot roll and I middle mouse click over here in my scene, I can see that the foot can bend based on how it would act if you had, your character was putting pressure or rolling off the foot. Okay? So kind of rotating that a little bit. I think I want to bring this down a smidge. Yeah, that way we can push this pose a bit. I want to have a little bit of reverse curve action. So reverse curve is how you would create contrast between 2 keys. So if I just had the foot falling flat, it wouldn't create as much of an impact unless I went in here and rolled the foot the opposite way, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little diamond again, and I'm going to add a little toe roll. There we go. That little curve there is just going to create a nice contrast and really emphasize that smack when it hits on the down key. And then maybe I will dial back the foot roll just a smidgen and may push this back a little. I just want to make sure it's hitting the ground. All right, let's go ahead and address the back foot. Go ahead and grab this diamond here, and let's go ahead and do that foot roll again. It's looking good. I think we could definitely push this back a bit. Yeah, I think we can go further than that. Yeah, something like that. Pretty nice contrast there. Okay, so now that I've got this contact pose, I'm going to click on all, and I'm going to go ahead and set a key on one. So now I've set a key on all of these controls, just kind of blocking out my motion. All right, I'm going to go ahead and look at my preview graphic again, and I see that the next contact is going to land on frame 13. So this is a basic tempo for a standard walk, which means that it's going to complete 2 strides, so 1 step and then the second step within about 1 second. So to get this tempo, this is where we need to place our key poses. So we're going to go to frame 13. And let's see here, let's go ahead and shrink down our timeline so that we're looking at frames 1 to 25, and then we'll click on 13. We'll click on everything and press S, And I'm basically going to reverse this pose. So let's look here. This is set at about 3.285. Let's copy that on Translate Z, and let's put that over here. Paste. And now that foot is moving forward. I know it looks a little crazy. I'm going to click back and forth on my greater than, less than keys. Those like the comma, period keys next to the letter M on your QWERTY keyboard. So I can kind of look at the pose. Oh, shoot, something I forgot to do. Let me go ahead and activate this down here. So next to the little orange guy running from the gear is this button. This one that turns red when you click on it, that is your auto key button. And you're going to want to use that auto key button when you make changes so that you're not constantly having to press S, S, S a million times every time you move something. All right, so let's go back to Translate Z and paste this controller so that it is up on the Z axis, matching the previous leg, the left leg. And now I'm going to use those keys next to M, the greater than, less than keys, so I can toggle between frame 1 and frame 13. Okay, so I want to see where this frame was originally. It's -4859. I'm going to copy it, go to frame 13, and I'm going to copy those coordinates. Uh-oh, did I freeze something? Okay, my hotkey stopped working for a minute. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and paste them onto my other foot. All right, it looks a little crazy, but we're going to get to it. So let's go ahead and grab this here and get that foot roll going a different direction. And let's roll those toes to create a nice reverse curve when that foot smacks down into the down position. Wonderful. All right, let's do the same with the other. So let's take the toe roll out altogether, and let's reverse that foot roll. Nice. All right, so now when I toggle between the two, they look fairly much the same. If I wanted to go that extra mile, I definitely alter this so that they aren't a perfect match, but this is a very basic lesson, so let's just move forward and be satisfied that we've got our two key poses. And at this time is a good time to save. So I'm working on walk _01, or maybe 001 underscore block out. So I've got an idea of what I'm doing in this file. All right, save. So now that I've got these going, I want to do my breakdown. So like key in between my poses. You've got these two key poses, and now I want to do the passing position, which falls in between the two. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the foot that all the weight is going on, and I'm going to set this to 0. Now I'm putting it on frame 7 because on our graphic, so if I go back to our graphic, you'll find that that passing position is at frame 7. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and 0 that back out, grab the little diamond, and I'm going to 0 that stuff back out as well, the foot roll and the toe roll. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and grab the main controller and just move this up because this is where the leg is most stiff, so that's easy. We're just going to move it to the point where it's super stiff but also flat on the ground so we don't have any of this levitating stuff. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and get this foot up here. Let's go ahead and turn off the foot roll and rotate this. Move it up. All right, at this point, our foot would be experiencing a little bit of drag. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that little diamond, and I'm going to create a little bit of toe roll. Okay, maybe a little exaggerated toe roll. We're just going to get some drag in there, okay? So now if I toggle between my positions, it's contact, passing, contact. All right, and I'll go ahead and just save. I don't need to save a new version. It's all part of the block out. Okay, so the next key, or the next breakdown rather, not key, it's like a breakdown. So the next breakdown is going to be on number 19. So let's go ahead and click number 19, and we could just do this over again where we 0 out the foot. Yeah, that's what we are going to do. This I was going to show something else, but I think I'll save it for the down position. So we are on, oh sorry, I forgot already. Let's see, it's number 19, yes. Okay, we're on 19. And let's grab the other foot and set it to 0. And let's go ahead and set the foot roll and the toe roll to 0. Let's go ahead and move our SimpleBot upward. All right, and let's go ahead and address this other foot. So let's grab the diamond controller and set that foot roll to 0. And then let's grab the foot itself. Creates a really nice passing position from the foot that is carrying the weight. Let's go ahead and click the diamond because we want to add a little bit of drag to those toes. And there we go. And now when we toggle using those greater than less than keys on the QWERTY keyboard, we have almost a walk in action here. In fact, if I press play, you can almost imagine this character walking. We're getting there. But we got to kind of connect the dots a little bit further. Okay, go ahead and save. And this time I'm going to go on to frame 4. So I already remember that 4 is the down position. So how do we know where to put the down position? That is a great question. The down position, when you are animating away from the global control, which speaking of which, let's go over here, make sure I keyed everything, because that's going to come in handy later in this particular exercise. All right, so when I click on this, when I have the character walk across the screen, typically everything moves on the foot, like moves forward on the foot that's on the ground, and our character will move forward in space away from its global controller. Okay, so that's one way, animating away from the global. However, we're animating a cycle in place. So instead of just following that footfall, we've got to kind of figure out where things are going to land in between the extremes. So in this case, we're going to figure out where this foot should be placed in between this contact and this passing frame. And one of my favorite tools to use in this instance, let's go to frame 4, it's going under animation, and you'll see that there is a, let's see if we can figure out which hotkey it is, ghost selected, there we go. So ghosting shows you kind of like a semi-transparent, well, ghost of the positions on this controller, anything that has keys on it. So right in this instance, it's the controller itself instead of the geometry. So you're able to see a ghost, as it were, of where the positions are. So in Toon Boom, this would be onion skinning. All right, so that's going to be helpful. Let's go ahead and zoom in. And we're just looking at the controller. In fact, we could just press Option 2 to hide the geometry for a moment. And what I want to do is make sure that this is falling in between these two controllers. So on frame 4, this is positioned in between frame 1 and frame 7. All right? And let's go ahead and turn our mesh back on. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and go back to SimpleBot, select everything, set a key. I'm also going to get rid of this ghosting. So I'm going to click on this controller, go back to animation, and you can choose to unghost a selection. That's the button next to it. So this first button, the third one from the right, is ghosting, and the one next to it is unghosting, so that you can get rid of it. It's not a distraction. All right. So not a lot has changed yet on this key. I'm going to go ahead and grab the main controller, or not main controller, the diamond controller behind the foot, and I'm going to turn off the toe roll, and I'm going to turn off the foot roll. All right, so we got it nice and flat on the ground. Now this is the down position because walks are a controlled fall. So let's grab this main controller and just dip this down a bit. We can exaggerate because it's animation, so this would be a far more subtle transition of poses if you were working in a realistic walk. But we have a cartoon, so we can push it. All right, so let's go ahead and lift this foot up and start bringing it forward. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my foot roll, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate the foot itself for this. All right. I'm also going to go back into this diamond shape and add a little bit of toe roll so that it looks like it's got some follow through in between poses. If I use my greater than less than keys, you can see that nice little progression. I think I might want to push this out. So it's like using our persistence of vision to figure out if these poses are working, and it seems like they are. All right. So now, if I click on one of my controllers, I can kind of transition. Oh, it looks like on the passing pose, I neglected to key everything. Let me go ahead and do that. All and set key. There we go. So when I grab the global, it should show me everything. All right, so contact, down, passing, contact, and then there's the other passing pose. So the next thing to do would be to take this down pose and plug it in where the down pose the down pose should go on the other side. So I'm going to look over here and see where down hits. Down hits on frame 16. So let's go to frame 16. Now this is where I want to use that shortcut I was thinking about using on the passing position. I'm going to click on frame 4. And when I click on frame 16, notice that it takes the shape of the previous frame right before 16, which is 13. So if I click on frame 4, I see a down pose. When I click on 16, I see whatever's stored on frame 13. If I click on frame 4 and I middle mouse click frame 16, look at that, it's holding the pose. So if I click all and I press S, I now have a down pose, but it's not correct. It's not the right foot. So let's go ahead and make that happen. I'm going to go ahead and click on this foot and I'm going to copy its translate Z value. I'm then going to go in my backmost foot, turn off the toe roll, and then grab the foot and I'm going to zero all of this out. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try again. Zero all this out. And on the Z, I'm going to go ahead and paste so that they match. All right, so I could go and do the same thing with the other foot, but I don't want to do that. I don't want a perfect copy every time. I'm just going to roll with this using my persistence of vision. So where I think the other down pose would be. Let's go ahead and click on this little diamond back here, and let's go ahead and toe roll this. I think we're going to probably want to rotate this further. All right, and let's go ahead and see. Yeah, that looks like it's working. Let's go ahead and rotate it a little bit more. Remember, I'm using those greater than less than keys on the QWERTY keyboard to get this effect. And it's kind of just flipping between. It's like paper flipping if you're doing 2D animation. It's really nice. Okay, so this seems to be working just by eyeballing it. If I press play, it looks a little funny, but it's starting to get there. It almost feels like the simple bot is ice skating. All right, so next we got to do the up frame. Let's go back and look at our reference real quick, and the up frame is going to hit on 10. So let's go ahead and hit on 10. And we want to do that ghosting technique again so we can figure out exactly where to position this foot in the cycle. So I'm going to go to animation, and I'm going to click on ghosting. And then I'm going to go ahead and use option 2 to hide my polygon mesh because I really just want to focus on these two. So let's go ahead and move this back. And I think it looks like that's a good distance between both controllers. I think that'll do. So we can go ahead and unghost this, and we can turn our mesh back on. And obviously it looks a little strange because when we pull it back that far, the foot starts to levitate off the ground. So that's when we go into the diamond and we start applying a foot roll. Remember, you can click on any of these channels and then middle mouse click in the open this area, the camera view is what I should have said. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and bring this up. Yeah, and let's toggle between them. Yeah, it definitely feels like it's gaining some air. Cool. So now I want to take this foot and I want to bring it up. Looks a little silly. I don't want this to necessarily be flat, but I don't want it to be quite like this either. I think this would make for, I want to do it this way. Let's see. I kind of like that reverse curve effect. Let's see if we allowed it to drag into it. Yeah, do you feel that? Do you see how it doesn't create as much contrast? So let's go ahead and let the foot bend this way. That way it's a little different because it's really bent here on the passing position. Not quite as bent this time, it's a little less so, but it's enough to create contrast between the two poses, the contact and the up. And that reverse curve action is so nice. Okay, I think we're almost done here. I'm going to go to frame 10, and the last up frame, let's go ahead and look. The last up frame is going to be on frame 22. So we're going to click on frame 10 and middle mouse click frame. Oh, let's make sure we keyed everything first. Simplebot, all, set key. We're going to middle mouse click frame 22, and we're going to press S again. All right, and so that way we don't have to figure out how high up the Simplebot's going. Everything is kind of preset for us. So let's click on this foot, and on this foot control, we see that it's translate Z -2.428. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to apply that here. Let's go ahead and zero out all of these. And on just the translate Z, let's push it back. All right. And let's go over here. It's easier to grab controllers this way. All right, over here, I see that the foot roll is set to 38.2. So I want to do that with my backmost foot. So let's do that. We're going to take away the toe roll, and we're going to go ahead under foot roll, and we're going to paste that. Boom. So now they match. And now, instead of copying the coordinates for my other foot, I'm just going to eyeball this and just use my persistence of vision to figure out what should look best. Ooh, careful of that pull vector snapping. All right, so I know that I want this to step up, and I also know that I still have my toe roll on. Let's turn that off. There we go. That's going to make a big difference. All right, let's see. Yeah, I'm feeling it. Maybe push it back a little. And let's go ahead and apply some toe roll here. Yeah, remember we're going to do it kind of the opposite way, just so that it has that reverse curve effect. There we go. Oops, helps if I grab something. I don't know if I love that. There, I like that one better. Yeah, seems like it's working. So the next thing we can do is hide our controllers using option 1, and we can go ahead and press play. Let's go ahead and end this at 24 instead of 25. Cool. It's effectively moving. Now, in another video tutorial, we could go ahead and interpolate this using like spline curves or auto curves and then polish this up. For what we're going to be doing in class on frame 25, what I'd like you to do is click all, make sure everything has been keyed. And on frame 1, I want you to middle mouse click to frame 25 and set a key, because we're going to use this in the graph editor to create infinity curves and to cycle this and cycle offset the global controller. We're just going to turn this walk cycle into a walk cycle that moves forward effectively. So go ahead and set a key at 25, and once you're done, you are finished with this part of the assignment. So just learning how to block out a basic walk. I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.